Do you think it is important for HR professionals, lawyers, and employees to receive training on ADR processes? And in your time, have you received any training, whether it be from the organizations you've been employed at or even outside organizations?
The short answer is yes, it's absolutely critical. To answer your question in respect of training, yeah, behind me I have a master's in dispute resolution from UNSW, which is a fantastic course. I don't think it's called that anymore. I think it's just a Masters of Laws in Dispute Resolution. But it's a fantastic course that's run by the University of New South Wales and is, in my view, the best, certainly tertiary education that you can get in respect of that. Not everybody needs to do that, though, and indeed it's probably impractical to say that everybody needs to go into a Masters in Dispute Resolution.
Yeah.
But the training in it, yeah, absolutely. I personally think that all barristers should do it, so that they're not, some are a bit bloody minded, but it should certainly be part of the law school syllabus. Most law schools these days are offering it through their skills programs, which is really good. I know Wollongong does. I know UNSW does. I'm pretty certain even Sydney does. So, that should be there as a foundational building block of legal education in this country, in my view. It is taught in PLT programs, but for HR professionals and for lawyers and managers even, I think that it's critical, and that sort of training gives you an appreciation. And there are a plethora of courses that are available.
Yeah.
And are really good, and you can go everywhere from Harvard, which has a fantastic program on negotiation, and indeed is what people are taught at institutions like UNSW, that the Harvard style, right down through to short courses that you can do provided by universities' extension committees, or alternatively through law firms or centres. And yeah, I think you need it. I really do.
Yeah. I mean, someone like you who had all that experience in ADR, working in trade unions, and you still went to do a master's in dispute resolution, just shows that, how important that skill is for, legal professionals, and, how you could always kind of improve upon that skill, because it's not a one time you learn it and then that's it, it's with you. It's something to be continually trained and, to be kind of consistent in. What do you think of the importance of organizations such as the Australian Dispute Centre in providing these types of training services?
Yeah, well, yeah, as I just sort of said, yeah, absolutely. Like, it sounds like the Australian Dispute Centre, all that sort of stuff, absolutely need to be out there. The type of skills and training they provide are fantastic. The smaller courses often are more practical, I can write you a fantastic essay on dispute resolution, but there were certainly other practical courses. But in my master's, but if you're sort of a HR practitioner or an employment lawyer on the ground, and you don't really want to sit there and read URI's texts or whatever on this sort of stuff, but just want to know how you can get a better environment for yourself and your workplaces, absolutely go to a centre like the Australian Dispute Centre, or any of those providers, and get the skills and train as many people on it, because you'll quite frankly, in my view, you'll have a better employment environment at the end of the day if everybody's got an appreciation of it. And I suppose on that point, I often can tell when somebody's had training or has studied it, because often some of the concepts are a little bit confronting, about accepting that there's something to give and things like that. But when you're dealing with someone on the other side, I have had a matter recently where at the end of the matter, I was just looking the person up, and I noticed that they'd been trained, they'd done the same course as I had. And I was like, hold up, the thinking was very similar. And so that was helpful in coming to conclusions. And so the more people that are trained in, hold up, it's not the end of the world that somebody's resigned or that you've sacked someone and they're suing you for it. There's a way through it. There's a way of managing it. Okay, cool. And those skills sometimes, again, like anything in life, can be a bit confronting, because sometimes you've got to admit or get ready to get the checkbook out or admit a bit of fault or something like that. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So just to reiterate what you said, basically in the summary, the more training people receive, the more efficient and more productive ADR is.
absolutely, absolutely. The more skills you've got, the better off you're going to be in these areas.
Yeah, cool. All right, Adam. Well, that's all the questions I have. I think you've answered everything I wanted very succinctly and very comprehensively. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problems, mate. Anytime.
Cool. Just gonna
All
stop.
right.
I guess given your experience with ADR, how important do you think it is for you know lawyers and HR professionals and employers to kind of receive training on ADR processes such as conciliation, be familiar with the Fair Work structure, and what do you think of the importance of organizations such as the Australian Dispute Centre in providing that kind of training?
Oh, look, I think the the uh, the 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 centre does extraordinary work. Their training and development is right up there. It is cutting edge. So they do an extremely important job in training and developing ADR specialists.
Okay.
Um, the insofar as the first part of the question is concerned, I think there is a really important role for ADR in all forms of dispute resolution jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the local court, to a large extent, has improved its game in terms of ADR, but I think they still also have a long way to go. They've still got to make a considerable further strides in getting ADR in amongst these sort of low-end matters that they deal with. And it's hard. It's hard to do that. Like, where do you do that? Where do you find the time to do that? It becomes difficult to do that sort of stuff. But nonetheless, I think there's areas to improve there.
Yeah.
I think, generally speaking, the more you get people together in ways that is holistic, but also not confrontational, the greater your capacity to resolve matters are. And ADR essentially does that.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we're going to get kicked out any second now. So thank you so much for your time, Stan. I appreciate it. Do you think there's enough emphasis of ADR in Australia's current employment law landscape? And what changes do you think could be made to better improve the efficiency of ADR in workplace disputes?
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's a good question. As I see it, Australia has a very the Australian industrial relations landscape has a very rich ADR presence. So it definitely does a lot of ADR and does it well, right? As part of all of the processes that are available to the commission and also to the federal court that deals with employment law and industrial relations in Australia. Can they do better? Well, of course, you could always improve. Even when you're a world leader, you can always improve. You can always get better, right? Just like you can always get worse. Right? So yes, it can get better. How can it get better? Well, I think addressing those types of issues, those power dynamics. I think the commission could do a lot more to improve that. Keep in mind that the power dynamic in the Australian industrial landscape is profound. It's quite obvious, right? It's not like, for example, in the local court where you may have, for example, a boundary dispute where two neighbours come together and they're disputing, a boundary line somewhere, right? And of course, I'm not making light of that dispute. It's a legitimate dispute, And
Yeah.
those disputes can be quite expensive disputes because depending on where the boundary falls, certain things can be applicable. You can have mineral rights
Yeah.
or other kind of accesses and so forth. So I'm not I'm not downplaying the value of that dispute. It's an important dispute. I'm just simply making the point that in that instance, you could have two parties that are potentially of equal value.
Mm-hmm.
The outset, right from the outset, the power differential is different,
Yeah.
right? And so the the ADR that is applied in the industrial landscape
Yeah.
should take that differential into consideration,
Yeah.
right? And should try to balance that off by bringing one side up or one side down,
Yeah.
or by potentially one up and one down to get that equal playing field.
Yeah.
Right? Because once you've got an equal playing field, then ADR comes into its own right.
Yeah.
If you want to know where the real success of ADR is where you have two sides that are of equal, that are playing on an equal playing field.